So with the death of Percival at the end of chapter 128 and part 1 of Four Nights of the Apocalypse hit a lot of us like a truck. I was told it made us feel very emotional over Percival's passing. However, the one thing that a lot of us kind of immediately afterwards began to wonder was when and how will he come back? Because, let's be honest, for a shonen manga, if a protagonist is killed off at some point, chances are they're going to be revived at some point along the story. Meliodas died in Seven Deadly Sins. I think it lasted around 20-ish chapters, and it was about 3 to 4 episodes in the anime, if I remember correctly. But either way, it didn't last super long, so we didn't have full time to properly digest Meliodas going away, and then him coming back. But with Percival, the way he went out was definitely different from Meliodas, which would entail us to think that we'll probably have to go a little bit without Percival in the story. I actually made a full video on my predictions on how things could go in the next part of Four Nights of the Apocalypse, which is up in the title card up above, if you want to see my thoughts on what could potentially happen. One of those being that we might shift protagonists for a bit. But Percival returning was always in mind, and I do think that when he comes back, it would have to be at a good time in the story. So before I get into my full thoughts on when Percival can come back and even how he'll come back, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. It really does help and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel, and keeps me more motivated to keep making Four Nights content for you guys. Also, I just started channel memberships if you guys want to support the channel even more, and you get some nice perks like early access to videos a couple of days to a week early, some members exclusive videos once every month, members exclusive polls and posts, as well as some shout outs as well. I will do my best to make all that worth it, and I also have some special emotes coming in and stickers for channel members in the coming future, along with some badges, so look forward to all of that. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's get right into the video. So, first we have to answer the big question. How will Percival come back? Well, there are a few ways we can go about this. The more obvious thing is probably Percival is in the spirit realm, or wherever his spirit went to at the end of part 1, with the Percival stand spirit power that gains somewhat sentience. We'll probably see a little bit of Percival in that realm, and perhaps we'll see the greater being that they were supposedly a part of to begin with, giving us a bit more into the lore of Seven Deadly Sins verse, maybe showing that there is another being outside of chaos that is basically around in the greater verse of Seven Deadly Sins in Four Nights. So we'll most likely see that, and maybe Percival will get to a better understanding of who he as a life spirit is, as well as the greater purpose of the life spirits in general. But something will happen where he might sense what's going on in Britannia, and he'll feel like he has to go back, and he'll have to find the body that he previously was essentially enchanted into, and basically reanimated with his powers. Now, since Percival is a life spirit, and since even though he did technically die, his power would most likely still be hope, so if he's going to come back, it would have to be entitled to people possibly hoping that Percival would come back, which would probably be his friend group, Donnie, Nausea, and On, and maybe even Lancelot, since they have the strongest bond with him. It probably might not happen, despite since he's literally actually dead, but for all we know, they might have just a little bit of hope in their hearts that someday Percival will come back, and that little spark will be just enough for Percival to find his way back to his body in the demon realm, and then wake back up. Obviously, tearful reunion with Zeldris and Gelda in Demon Realm if they're still around at that point, because we're probably in the midst of a war with Camelot right now. So Percival would end up coming back. Now, that is one way on how Percival will come back. He comes back on his own. But there is another more interesting way that I kind of want him to come back, and that is him basically being forced to return by somebody else, and due to that, he doesn't immediately come back as the jovial person that he was before, and instead we get a sense of foreboding and eeriness to Percival's resurrection, and we'll end up tying back into the full prophecy of the Knights basically being prophesied to destroy the world. And we'll maybe get an image of how Percival looks in that foreboding image from chapter 5, showcasing all four Knights of the Apocalypse in the future. And that is, I think Chion might end up summoning Percival back from the spirit realm. Now, you know how much I dislike Chion as a character. Really well written character. Just do not like him whatsoever. It's a meme at this point on the channel. But with his skill set and being able to basically conjure up spirits and make contracts with them and even summon them and use their powers, and since he knows about life spirits and how they're basically like very lofty spirits or the highest ranking of spirits, perhaps Shion ends up finding a way to summon Percival back, realizing that the Four Knights can't do anything without Percival there as a complete unit. That would also chime into the fact that Shion would have to accept that Tristan isn't the entire world, and has to acknowledge that Tristan needs other people around him at his power level to help the world. I know it's asking a lot, but it's possible. And I think to make it come full circle, perhaps he even finds the forbidden magic spell that Ironside even used to bind life spirits to Percival's original corpse that he used to reanimate him. Now, the fact that Percival willingly went back to the spirit realm could end up giving some negativity to Percival, because if Shion ends up bringing him back forcefully in the midst of a full-on war, perhaps all the negativity and despair brought about by people on both sides due to the conflict could end up influencing Percival, and perhaps his hope magic will end up turning into that despair power that we saw when he drained the life out of Shion's arms when he went ballistic in Leonis, because we all want despair mode Percival to come back at some way, shape, or form, and I think this would be a fun way to bring it in. Shion revives Percival, and he crawls out of the grave in probably one of the coldest panels that Nakba will ever draw. I even commissioned an artist to do the thumbnail on this video based off this one singular scenario, which I do really hope it's something similar to that, because I've been reading Spider-Man Kraven's Last Hunt, and I just love this so far, and I kind of figured, okay, Percival's going to come back. I hope it's some way, shape, or form how Spider-Man comes back in Kraven's Last Hunt, just crawling out of his own grave. So Shion would bring back Percival, but it would probably be maybe a couple months, maybe a few even years later. And when he's brought back, he is overcome and overwhelmed by all the negative emotions and despair brought about by this whole invasion and war, that he kind of goes on a rampage, stealing life from others around him. And it isn't until his friends show up and the rest of the Four Knights having to fight him without, losing their lives, so they could end up using their hope to bring him back to his senses, and they can get their friend back. Culminating in Percival not only getting his senses and sense of self fully back, but a better understanding of the situation in Britannia at the time, and even his own abilities with the life spirit powers that he now has in what he knows from his time in the spirit realm, however much time was there, and if he retained any real information, meaning that he could potentially use this despair form whenever he wants, or he'll just turn that despair into hope by coming back and inspiring others around him. I know it's a bit of a stretch, but I do think that either Percival coming back on his own with just a little bit of hope from the people who know him, wanting for him to come back at some later point in the story, maybe a few months or a few years after the fact, or maybe even Shion finding that forbidden magic spell that Ironside used to basically make Percival who he is, essentially, and use that in a attempt to bring back the Four Knights of Prophecy, because he realizes that Tristan can't really handle all this by himself, and they do in fact need Percival, and he's got to swallow his pride and sense of, well, simping for Tristan in a sense, to bring back Percival. I think these are the two big ways that we could actually bring about Percival's return. Now, some people stated in the comments of previous videos that maybe since Percival's vessel is empty, the Demon King could end up possessing Percival and coming back to life in the world of Britannia. That could be possible, but here's the thing. The Demon King needed the 10 Commandments in a suitable vessel because it possessed his powers, allowing him to transfer his consciousness to a new body. Melios destroyed the Commandments, and we assume perhaps the rest of the Demon King, even though there is the issue of the Demon King being stuck in purgatory, but I think he's just gone for good, because chaos wouldn't have been unsealed if the Demon King didn't actually die, because that was the whole point of Merlin reinstating the curses on Melios and Elizabeth. They needed the Demon King to die for chaos to fully manifest in the world, and for Arthur to fully gain the power of chaos awakening in him. So yeah, I'm kind of just not coming into account the fact that Demon King could possess Percival's body. I don't want that, and I doubt that's the case. Would still be pretty cool, but it just wouldn't make much sense. Another possibility that I honestly don't think is going to happen is Arthur using chaos to take Percival's corpse and reanimating it, but by doing so and making his friends fight his chaosified or possessed body, Percival's spirit will end up trying to fight for control and get his body back, similar to how Meliodas fought the Demon King in his spiritual world to gain full control of his body again. That's another possibility, but highly unlikely that's going to be the case. I'm more prone to the fact that Percival coming back on his own, through obviously his hope powers with his friends, or Shion just using the exact same spell to bind Percival back to the world of the living. These are the two theories that I'm going with, and I kind of want either one of these to be the case. Either way, I do want Percival to come back in a bit of an eerie despair-like state through all the negativity of the invasion and the war, and then get his senses snapped back afterwards. But the last bit is, we need a good amount of time before Percival's return. I spent this whole video talking about how Percival can and when will he come back. I didn't specify on the when for us in real world time. I really think at the bare minimum we need at least 2 full arcs without Percival. How long those arcs will be, I have no clue, but I do think we need at least a year of no Percival, because I think that will put in the gravity of the situation with us basically getting used to the situation with the characters in this new, status quo. Percival gone, whoever ends up being the new protagonist, and we get to see everything that's going on now that he's gone and how things are progressing in the main plot. And it will give you a sense of maybe Percival might not come back, only to make Percival's return even more satisfying, even more of a surprise, as well as more hype. I think that would be the best way to do so. Wait like 6 months to a year at minimum. I want a year of no Percival just so we can get the gravity of the situation in the story and to really make it stick, and then have one of the 2 theories, or maybe a third option that Nakaba comes up with that's possibly better, to come true and have Percival return in a really cool manner. But of course, those are just my thoughts and opinions and where things could potentially go. But what did you guys think? Leave your thoughts, opinions, and even theories on Percival coming back and when in the comment section down below. And once more, if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and want me to keep going. And with all that said and done, I hope you all have an awesome day.